So, about to do this oil change, this Hyundai Elantra, and yeah, this is 6 years old. That's how I keep it clean, maintained, no rust, oxidization, nothing. Constantly working it out. And the good thing with these cars is when they made them, they put these skid plates or dirt plates underneath. And they work pretty darn good, keeping everything out of the engine and all the crap and corrosion. And they even got the liquid bleeders here that work pretty good. That's a good thing. It's kind of irritating to take it on and off every now and then, but it works. And as usual, putting in the AMSOIL synthetic. And this stuff here is the only thing that's been in this car, and it is just pristine and clean. And there's an interesting thing a lot of people don't realize is they go out and they buy the synthetic oils, but they don't buy a synthetic oil filter, which kind of negates the purpose of having synthetic oil, because synthetic oil will rip apart a traditional oil filter. So that's kind of very important, is that you get a synthetic filter to go with your synthetic oil. And the way you can find out with a synthetic filter is how good they are is you can see the mileage on it. Like this one here, it's for 15,000 mile change interval. And this oil basically goes with the same thing. So it's a yearly event for this car. But this oil is good. And another thing a lot of people don't do when they do oil changes on cars is they never measure the amount of oil that they're taking out of the engine. So if you're taking out less oil than you have to be put in, then you got some serious mechanical issues going on in your engine, and you're probably going to need an engine rebuild. So best way to find out when you're doing an oil change if your engine is doing good is if you're taking out the same amount of oil that you're putting in. So that's just something to consider. And up here in these out here in these New Brunswick winters, this car is actually held out pretty good because it doesn't have an anti-rust treatment on it, although I am going to start touching it up here pretty soon. But yeah, things to consider, folks, if you're going to be doing synthetic oils and stuff like that. If you're going to do the synthetic oils, make sure you get the synthetic filters that go with it. If not, then that synthetic oil is going to last a lot longer than the filter, and then you're going to have filter particulate running through your engine, and that ain't good. Right, I'll post you up when I'm getting the rest done. So here's another little piece of information a lot of people don't do. Before you put your oil filter in your car, you should fill it with oil. That way when the pressure of the engine comes around, it's not going to rip the pleats in the oil filter material, and the oil filter will be completely saturated with oil. The only thing you got to remember is the amount of oil that you use to fill up your oil filter. You should always consider that when you're filling up your engine oil, that you're not putting too much engine oil in. And you'll see this will take about half a liter of oil. This oil filter, it just gets sucked in there and saturated. And then when you put your oil filter on your engine and you start your engine with all the new oil, the oil filter is not getting shocked. That's kind of important stuff to do. And for the people who don't know, because a lot of people do not, you always take a little bit of oil and you rub it on the outside of the rubber. That way it doesn't melt or burn to the oil filter receiver housing. because if you don't put oil on that, it's going to get hot with the engine heat, and it's just going to melt, and then you're going to have it scraped off, or you scrape it off, and it just creates a lot of work for nothing. Don't ask me why I know that. We all had to start somewhere, right? So that oil filter is just about full. And then on the housing where the oil filter goes, you want to clean that area. Making sure there's no debris that will affect the correct seal of the oil filter to the oil filter receiver housing. And another good little trick for people, when you're emptying your oil cans, right? On the side usually of every can you get these indicators, and what I do is I just fill these cans back up, and it tells me how much oil that I pulled out of my car or my truck or my bikes. So that there is roughly 4.5 liters of oil. So I know just by that my engine is performing correctly. So just another little tip, right? Pour your oil into your oil cans that you've taken out of the engine, and that'll tell you how much oil you've taken out of your vehicle. Here's another interesting tip. When you're putting these skid plates on, in the back you're going to see that little clip on the side. That's what you got to clip in first to the frame. Then you start putting in your nuts and your plastic clips. Just so you know. I took this time also to get the rust out and all those things. So, got the oil filter in here, and it's not leaking. The oil pan nut, that's in there solid. I also cleaned up the metal frame all along the edges, put some anti-rust on everything. So this guy's pretty much good to go for the winter. But when I do rotate the summer tires out for the winters, I'm going to change the rotors and brake pads on the front end. Also, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, I cleaned up the rat a bit, got as many of the bugs out of there as I could. Pretty ugly, but yeah, you get all these bugs out of here, and next thing you know, your cooling system's working better. Things like that. You got to be careful when you're in here, because you don't want to break these fins or fold them over. But yeah, car's looking pretty good underneath. It's all plastic underneath there. It's quite impressive. Cheap car, but quite impressive. One of my other favorite things, this creeper. But I also love this light from Milwaukee. It's an under hood light. I mean, this thing is awesome. Place it anywhere you want. Hang it anywhere you want. Really shows the engine compartment well. It's really nice.